Hello and welcome to the Hypertrophy Odyssey chapter
466.
It is the second day of the week, aka the Spirit Bomb Special Beam Cannon workout. I'm feeling very good right now, very excited for this workout. But anyways, to the main subject matter for today, the Rat Pack mentality, or hoarding a lot of shit, but not really hoarding. The main reason why I wanted to discuss this is because yesterday I was thinking about this. I had a couple of stickers I hadn't used, and I was like, I should probably take these out and use them. And then I was like, man, there are people out there that have stickers or things that they've bought and then never used them, and then made me think of that, and then that entire thing, because it also extrapolates to video games. So in today's episode, we're going to be looking at that as well, because I've been there. Obviously, I'm a huge video game enthusiast, or I was at least. So I was a person who would do this a lot in video games in particular, so I know that experience nonetheless. But I wanted to talk more about that in that context, but as well as things that we have, that we buy, that we intend on using and never really use, that are still kind of useful, but then years go by and then it just becomes dust in the wind or something to throw away when spring cleaning comes. So in today's episode, we're going to be looking at that, all the mechanisms that probably go into that, some personal stories on that, and how I've noticed it and how I've tried to curb it, and a whole bunch of other stuff when we get to Mother Base.
All right, so start this day off with squats, which are pretty good. But anyways, back to the main subject matter for today. Hoarding shit for the future is the best way to describe what I'm talking about. So today's subject matter is different from hoarding. That is something completely different. I would like to talk about that in and of its own subject matter, because that is not what I'm talking about. Technically it is, but not really. What I'm talking about here is buying things for the future. And what I mean by that is when you buy something and say, oh, I'm going to use this, and then never fucking use it. And then you're reminded of, oh, I just bought this and wasted money on it. And the main reason why I want to discuss this is because this happens a lot in a phenomena, a lot of the time in video games. I feel like a lot of people who've played most types of video games, at least there are some that have inventories with stuff that you can collect over time and then use that inventory throughout the game. And of course, a lot of people end up holding on to a bunch of the items that are in the inventory to make sure that they have them for whenever they need them. But a lot of the times what happens is whenever they need them, they'll just keep holding on to them until later down the road. They keep kicking that can down up until the final boss, in which case they use it all on the final boss. And then the final boss either becomes a cakewalk, or they basically made the game so hard beforehand that they've leveled up so much that now they're kind of just whatever with the boss. They don't even need all of those items. And this is something that happens to me personally a lot of the time with games like Resident Evil 4 in particular, which I hopefully put at least in the thumbnail, because it is something that happens a lot, where I'll just hoard a fuck ton of items until the very end, only to realize, oh, I don't need to hoard all this fucking items. And also, knowing now what I know, if you're playing the game on regular difficulties, like normal and even easy, maybe hard, I think, but even then, they will give you enough stuff in order to be able to get through the game. You know, you don't have to worry about hoarding the entire time, which is something that even in real life, I'll end up doing, where I'll buy something like I said in the beginning, like stickers, where I'm going to say I'm going to use it later in life or later in the future. But in reality, I don't actually end up using them. And it kind of sucks, because when you see it, you're like, wow, I haven't used this. This is money wasted in a certain sense. Now, of course, I like to put stickers on shit, so I will end up using them, or at least try to as much as I can. And I like to at least try to use any items that I buy as soon as I get them. But there are a lot of things that I end up buying for future for case purposes, or for something that I'm like, oh, I don't have any room for this right now, but I will in the future. And I think that this is just a regular common problem that a lot of people end up having, where they think, or they want to buy something and they understand that they want to use it, or at least that there is some need or void or want in it that they want to fill, or actually possibly fill, depending on, of course, their situations. But sometimes those situations don't end up actually happening, and that's the thing that kind of sucks. It's like a weird loss of not only income, but like also just like a future that never was. And it's weird to think about. Specifically, you get people who end up like buying babies' clothes, and then they don't actually ever end up having a baby. baby, or they have an entire room dedicated as a nursery, but they don't actually have a child anymore. So things like that, where it's sort of a sadness that goes along with it now, because now it's a future that never was, and you have to start thinking about stuff like that. Now, of course, that's just extrapolating it to a higher degree, of course, because obviously and stickers aren't like that, nor are video games like that. But it is interesting to see that we tend to have a want to make sure that we have certain things for the future, as if we are preparing for something that it will inevitably be gone. And of course, there are things that are limited edition and things that won't actually ever come up again. But I think nowadays, with how things are, most things are just made shittily, and or there's no real need in order to have to like hoard these types of things anymore. Specifically because I feel like in life generally it will be able to throw you the ball in your court for the things that you actually want to keep. So it ends up working out. But it is interesting that this happens, and I feel like when in video games, because in video games you can go back, replay the game, and actually play it where you're just doing everything that you can, to fuck around, like you can do a run of Resident Evil where you're just going crazy with it, and you're just going, balls to the wall, using up all your items all at once, and you're not really worried about it because the game's going to have your back in the middle of it. So it is interesting to go back in that case, and Resident Evil is just the best example I can use for this. I know people do this in games like the Dark Souls and the Elden Rings and stuff like that, but it's just a general example. But that is something that is interesting because in life, you can't do that. You can't go back and unspend this money or sell an item unless it is something that retains its value. But that's a harder or like risk, or it's a harder ask than anything, because not everything holds their worth or is valuable to others. And that's the other thing. It's like you'll buy something and then it's just a lost item. Really, it's just lost money. It just sits there collecting dust, and unless you either throw it away, which at that point you're getting the free room that it's taking up, or try to sell it for pennies at the dollar where you're not going to really get much back for it. It's kind of a shitty thing to think about, really, and it sucks just thinking about what could have been with whatever it is. It's wasted money, it's wasted time, wasted effort, wasted thought almost. And it's not always just necessarily that much wasted, because obviously there are levels to it, but sometimes it can really put a damper on things when you look at something and you're like, damn, what could have been.
And we're back. Welcome to the workout debriefing. Exercises not filmed, none. Exercises skipped, also none. Got everything in, thankfully. But anyways, back to the main subject matter at hand here today. The pack rat mentality. So the main reason why I want to discuss this is because this came up randomly in my thoughts, and I was like, holy shit, this is something that happens to me even. And I think now as an adult, I try to actually use basically everything that I've gotten in a way or some shape or form, so that way I'm not wasting so much stuff. I'm trying to make it so if I buy something nowadays, I actually use it. And one shining example of this is this fucking camera. When I bought it, I was very much hey, let me actually use this camera to make sure that, hey, I actually do something with it. And I think that alone was the reason why I even started this channel, because I had the thought process of, hey, if you're going to buy it, use it, And I still have that thought process to this day whenever trying to purchase stuff. I try not to let myself go out of there. I talked in this episode right here about the generational debt and how people will have lifestyle creep kind of come in and try to fuck them over by buying shit that they don't necessarily need. And it's true. But I think that there's also the inverse of, there's also another side of that, where buying stuff that you're actually going to use, the amount of things that people waste their money on that just sit around, collect dust, or are used once and never used again, is quite astonishing. A lot of the time these things used to be like 10, 15 bucks that you could kind of get away with like doing, because it was like whatever. It wasn't like it wasn't end all be all. But obviously those things add up, and as well, those types of things nowadays are so fucking cheap and not worth 10 or 15 bucks most of the time that you might as well just leave it alone and go save your money and go do with it something that's better. I think that that's just the main reason why I wanted to discuss this. It's just a very interesting mentality, because even in video games, it's something that I would personally do. I was a big pack rat person in Resident Evil 4 specifically. I was a big fan of buying the new cases so I can have more inventory, so that way I can carry more shit, because in my mind I'm always on the verge of running out of shit, even though in reality the game always gives you just enough so you don't have to run out of shit. That's always how it worked. But mentally I couldn't escape that idea that I'm gonna need every single fucking grenade and ammo kit that I find out in the wild. It's just kind of like a scarcity mentality almost. And you could say that it applies in the real life in a certain sense, but at the same time it's like it's been exploited by companies to make sure that you buy shit that you really don't need, but you're gonna buy it anyway because it appeals to you in some small niche factor, or pretends to solve a problem that you don't really have, really, or something else solves in its entirety, but you just want to cut up a step, when in reality it adds probably 17 steps. There are so many like as seen on TV things that you could buy that realistically save you time, but in reality don't at all. Now, I'm not saying all of them are fucked or damned to hell, and we'll probably do an episode about that in the future, but at the same time, most of the time it's just a gimmick. It try to get you separated from your money. And so this is just more of an episode about going through stuff, because it's probably spring. It's springtime by the time this episode comes out, so it's spring cleaning time, which I'll probably make a whole episode about, just that idea in general. But I wanted to talk about that with this because there's so many things that I have that I see that I'm just like, I need to use this or get rid of it. So with that being said, tell me what you think in the comments section down below. I'd love to know your thoughts and opinions about this one. This one kind of random, but yet still something that happens nonetheless. I feel like a lot of people end up doing this, especially in video games and of the sort. Please let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comment section down below. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Please share this video with anybody who may or may not like it. I will be back on tomorrow with a new video. Thank you very much for watching. I really do appreciate it. I will see you in the next one. Keep it heavy, stay safe out there, and stay warm. And I'll see you in the next one. Peace.